Du coup, je... Oh, anybody, Elisa, because I don't see the people.
Yes, for
Okay. Good, perfect. So we can begin. Welcome everyone to this ACUMEN and SYNCHROMODE webinar. So there will be more people joining, but we can already start by explaining why we wanted to organize this webinar together. So ACUMEN and SYNCHROMODE, there are some sister projects, both taking part to the multimodal traffic management cluster. So it's the same kind of project under the Horizon program. And so we did a lot of similar works, and we had already some joint session during conferences during the projects, and so first and foremost we're going to have a joint final event together. It's going to be at the end of April on the 21st and 22nd in Brussels, where we will have many representatives from the Commission also coming to understand a bit what is at stake currently in the traffic management projects and research. So that's why we wanted to organize this webinar together a bit ahead of these final events, especially so focusing on the topic of governance, because both projects worked on it, and to design the best governance framework to manage some increasingly complex traffic management systems with new technologies. So yeah, that's just a short explanation of why we are organizing it together. I see that we have a bit more of attendees, so welcome everyone. We're going to begin. So for those who don't know me, I'm Sybille Meffre. I'm working for Police Network, and I'm working especially for the ACUMEN project. We were in charge of the communication and dissemination of the project. I also worked previously on the SYNCHROMODE project, and my colleagues here, Melina and Elisa, are working on it now. And so we were in charge of organizing all the webinars for those two projects. So here we're going to talk about governance framework. What are we going to do in this hour? So first, we want to give you a good introduction to the two projects to understand exactly what was at stake, what were the different challenges and outputs of the projects. So we'll introduce it in the first part. Then we will have a short introduction about the topics of governance with a Mentimeter. I think you're all quite familiar with this tool. We'll give you the link in the chat when it's time to answer the question. And then we'll do a deep dive into the topic with first presentation from Simone Bossetti from Lux Mobility, one of our Acumen partner. He's going to present the insights from the Acumen City Guidebook and the decision-making tool that was designed for cities. And then we'll have the presentation from Lakshya Pandit from Ruprecht Consults, one of SYNCHROMODE's partner. And here he's going to present the multi-actor cooperation and the governance model that they have worked on all the workshop that they've done on the topic. We'll finish the webinar with a 15 minutes Q&A. So on this, just to have some housekeeping rules for webinar and make sure that it runs smoothly. So you see that this webinar is being recorded. So if you have any issue with the recording, just tell it to us now. Otherwise, we'll proceed with it. Indeed, it's going to be used only for the sake of the project, and all cameras are off. Unless just for the panelists. Microphones should remain on mute as much as possible, but you can always ask your questions in the chat. And especially after each of the presentation, you have some time to ask some of the immediate question. And at the end, we'll have those 15 minutes to do really some deep dive and to have an open discussion. So if everything's fine for everybody, I'll begin with the presentation of the Acumen project. So first, what is ACUMEN standing for? So it's standing for AI-aided decision tool for seamless multimodal network and traffic management. So really the aim of this project was to facilitate the access to seamless mobility using new technologies such as AI. The project is under the Horizon call, and it started in June 2023, and it's ending at the end of May this year. There were 17 partners all across Europe that were involved. You can see here the logos. And among those partners, so we have a really interesting consortium because we had like 6 universities like focusing on the research part and really the advancement of how to use AI in the traffic prediction. We had some research and technology organization with IMS Institute and LIST who created the tool. We had some industry as well, some different stakeholders from there, and some cities and networks also to have really some implementation directly on the local level. So really, we have all the different traffic management stakeholders present in the project, and that was really rich. What we did so far, so the main goal was to create some methodological components. The first one was the secure and decentralized data framework. So the aim was to facilitate really real-time information, to share the data among mobility providers and operators. We know it's always difficult, this data sharing, but here there were some good progress made on this. And then also to create some advanced monitoring and forecasting, and really to try to go further to how to analyze and to predict the traffic patterns, and to have really some proactive management strategies. And all of these components were used in tools that were directly designed for the cities. So here you have really a good overview of those components with the data, the demand forecasting, and the traffic transport management, all integrated in one single tool that is the ACUMEN Digital Twin that was directly used for cities. And in cities, we had 4 pilots. So first one is the Athens pilots, which is a simulated one. So here the goal was really to provide some short-term forecasts to support the traffic management decision. Then the second pilot is the one of Helsinki. There the goal was really to encourage the users to go from one mode of transport to another to ensure multimodality, and they used some really interesting incentives via app. So it was in the West Harbor area, Jätkäsaari, and making sure that the passengers would go like from the boat to the tram to walking, and to use all different modes of transport that were available. Then another pilot is the one of Amsterdam. Here there are some the main focus was to focus on the critical disruption and how to handle them the best, and to ensure seamless travels for the citizens. And the last one is the Luxembourg pilot. Here the focus was on the on-demand shuttle bus, and how to really introduce those automated vehicles into the traffic of cities. So all those 4 pilots, you will be able to know way more during the final event, where they're all going to be presented so at the end of April. So that would be the great place to also to meet the pilot leaders. So that's it for the introduction to ACUMEN. Then I'll leave the floor to my colleague Melina, who is going to present the SYNCHROMODE part.
Thanks, Sibyl. Good morning, everyone. I'm Melina Zaruka, project coordinator here at Polis, and also the cluster lead for Access and Urban Nodes task force. If we go to the next slide, Sibyl, please. SYNCHROMODE is a 3-year Horizon Europe project coming under the same call as ACUMEN, bringing together a strong consortium of 16 partners from 6 European countries, coordinated very smoothly, I must say, by Serth Hit from Greece. It delivers a suite of services for improving the overall transport network management. The objectives are to foster the coordination of different agents and stakeholders involved in the provision of the transport services, across three innovative services: a data exchange system that is network wide, a cooperative dashboard for real-time monitoring, and a resilient multimodal transport network tool. Going into more detail for the tools in the next slide is the one that we call SYNCHROMODE Toolbox, is for improving the management of transport operations from a multimodal perspective and to manage the overall network. It functions around four main pillars: data gathering and harmonization of it, fusion and analysis of data; pillar 2 for the simulation and prediction; and then in pillar 3, the network gets optimized, coming to an end pillar when the stakeholders coordinate for the final optimized transport network operation. This is SYNCHROMODE's added value. It provides to transport managers and players in general new predictive and network optimization capabilities for balancing the transport supply and demand, and capable of reacting to different type of events. This toolbox is tested in 3 case study locations. So if we go to the next slide, in Thessaloniki, Greece; in South Holland in the Netherlands; and Madrid in Spain. In Thessaloniki, all the services of the toolbox are used for the multimodal traffic management for planned and unplanned events. So a multi-source data quality assessment is being undertaken in order to enhance and exchange the data between actors, and then on real time, it broadcasts and exchanges different traffic management scenarios between the TMCs, and in this way, connected autonomous vehicles are managed as well, and making the network more resilient for the unplanned events. In the Netherlands, the case study focuses on 3 recurring problematic situations in terms of traffic management: large-scale infrastructure works in seasonal touristic areas around the flower exhibition in Keckenhof, and at the busy beach days during the summer. In Madrid, in Spain, the case study aims to demonstrate solutions for the integration of urban last-mile deliveries using public transport services, and to coordinate them with other transport modes, enabling more efficient multimodal trip chains. But you're going to hear more about the case studies in our final event at the end of April, as Sibyl said, and you're going to get more information about that later. I'm adding the link to the toolbox that you can have a first view of the interface of it on the chat, but we will demonstrate the toolbox at the final event. So please feel free to join us there and register yourselves. Thanks, Sibyl. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Melina. So now I'm going to just quickly go to the mentor. So normally you can, maybe I'm just going to give you the link that you
Put
can.
the link in the chat.
Yeah, put the link in the chat. Perfect. Thank you, Elisa. So we're going to do a short Menti just to introduce you a bit to the topic of governance. So the first question is indeed just to check that everything is running smoothly, so you can directly connect to it, and we can start. Do you all succeed to connect? Yes, I see a lot of respondents. 2 out of 8 that were connected. Wait, we wait for the 9 people to answer. 7, nearly there. Still 2 people to answer. But we see that here in the audience, it's interesting because we have already different type of people. So people coming and working for cities, and more for private companies, and one other. If you want to speak up to say where you come from, you're feel free to do so, or put it in the chat. So it will be interesting to know. But then if there is no more other answers, we can maybe just go to the next slide. Consultancy. That's Joanna. Yeah, indeed, consultancy. And Joanna is also part of the advisory board member of ACUMEN research organization. So great. So we have a little, really small sample of the representation of the different traffic management stakeholders. We see that it's really coming from different backgrounds. I'm going to switch already to the next slide to leave some time to the panelists. So here. So indeed, it's maybe easier for the one coming from cities and less for the others. But so one of the key questions, and yeah, feel free to not answer if you don't don't feel like it. But so really one of the key elements when we talk about governance, so it's how to really structure the different stakeholders that will manage traffic in the city. And we see that there are different types of structure, and it really will have an impact on the way it's managed after. So usually we can have some centralized traffic management. There is just one main authority that is managing it in the city, or it could be shared between several public agencies. It can be also a strong public and private cooperation, and or it can be really totally fragmented, and sometimes the management is not so clear. So I don't know if at least the people from cities has already some answer. I will show the answers yet. So we see interesting that there are, at least in our little sample, already 4 different types of governance structure. So it's so we'll be able to hear more about so in the projects all different types were studied. So it's going to be interesting to see a bit the inputs and understand how it's yeah, the different models that exist. Okay, great. And then I will just the last question to introduce the topic is what is currently the biggest governance challenge for traffic management in your city? Because we know it's really not an easy task. Traffic management is more and more complex now that's introducing all those new technologies, AI. And we listed some challenges that are, for example, the coordination between the agencies, the data sharing between the different stakeholders, the lack of funding or resources, also yeah, a really strong regulatory framework that would not allow to do everything that we want to, or the lack of institutional capacity. Here again, different answers that we see, so different challenges. If there is still some who wants to answer, but so we see that for now, yeah, in our sample, still always yeah, different challenges that comes out. Thanks a lot to everyone. I think it's yeah. It seems that the data sharing seems to be the biggest one for our audience. Thanks a lot to everyone who participated. So it's a good overview, and so we can really understand that yes, governance is complex, and that's why we want to hear now from the project and to understand all the insight that they can share with us. Simonel, if you share your screen now.
So thank you, Sibyl. Good morning to everybody. I hope you can see me, you can hear me, but more importantly, you can see my screen. Mm, just two words about who I am and what is Luxobit and the work we did in the ACUMEN project. Luxobit is a small consultancy firm based in Luxembourg, but with offices also in Milan, where I'm actually based, and in Lisbon. Lux Mobility focuses on is a consultancy focusing on transport and mobility and innovation, but it's also a social impact company. So we really work with cities, authorities, industry, and other stakeholders to bring knowledge, translate knowledge into innovation and achieve impacts. The work that we did, we were responsible in the ACUMEN project was related to governance, which is the topic for today, but also exploitation and impacts. So I will try to summarize. Not easy to summarize the quite extensive work that we did on governance within the ACUMEN project. First of all, why governance matters? I mean, because when provided that, as Sibyl mentioned while presenting the project, ACUMEN is pretty much focused on innovative tools and solutions related to AI, artificial intelligence. But this is not just about technologies and tools. It's about governance. Our governance is also even more relevant to make it happen, to foster social acceptance, which is one of the barriers for artificial intelligence. So we are in the context where cities and AI is increasingly changing the way cities are managing traffic, and not just that, of course, as we all know. Indeed, the cities increasingly rely on real-time data, predictive analytics, digital twins, and more in general, I mean, AI decision support system. So governance is relevant to meet and to tackle some challenges which are related to fragmented responsibilities. And I have to say, I was a little bit surprised from the result of the Menti, because fragmented responsibility was not ranked highest, maybe because we have a small sample, not necessarily people working in cities under different authorities, but indeed fragmentation is an issue. There is limited, that was more underlined by the respondents, limited data sharing and interoperability. And then there is, I mean, these state-of-the-art concept and technologies. There are still some uncertainties about regulations and accountability. And overall, there is a lack of institutional capacity whenever there is something new appearing. I mean, institutional capacity should keep the pace with this. What was the work that we did in ACUMEN? What was our approach? First of all, just for you to let you know that we elaborated this guidebook for cities practitioners, city authorities, and decision makers. This is, I'm afraid, is not publicly available already, but it will be very soon, and we will also launch this in our final event that is planned in a few weeks in Brussels. This guidebook is a tool, a guidebook that we wanted to provide cities in order to support them in integrating AI safely and transparently, elaborating on the EU regulations, and I will give you a snapshot on that in a while, improve collaboration among stakeholders, and really being sure to help, being sure that cities, traffic operators, traffic managers deploy artificial intelligence whenever it really provides an added value, a real value. As Sibyl mentioned, this work is rooted in the pilot demonstrations that we did in 4 cities, in 4 settings, which are Luxembourg, Helsinki, Athens, and Amsterdam. We also tried to elaborate and systemize and build on the work that was done also around the topic of governance by the projects belonging to the multimodal traffic management cluster, where ACUMEN and SYNCHROMODE and other projects I also see from the participants. There are some representative of these projects, and we frame this in a broad analysis of the policy and the regulatory framework. The result is the city guidebook, which is also quite operational because it's not just a guidebook, a report, a document, but there is also an online tool that is also already available, and we'll come back to this in a while. So just to give you some elements about what we mean, what we are talking about. What are the foundations of AI governance? There are, I think, three transformations that we should consider in order to be in the position to implement this kind of solution. One is institutional, because authorities should oversee, and this is relevant, a human overseeing complex digital systems and ecosystems, something to some extent new or really a transformation. Then there is something about it's a cultural transformation. It's about decision making being more and more data driven and collaborative. And then there is the technical transformation, of course. It's about innovative solutions, but when we look from this perspective, is about transparency, accountability, security, and explainability, so that we increase the public acceptance of this kind of tools and solutions. I was mentioning the European regulatory framework. There are a number of documents, legal documents, regulatory documents in place. Of course, the context and the field is evolving at quite a fast pace. We have the Artificial Intelligence Act, which importantly classify traffic management as a AI used for traffic management as a high risk. So it's the top, risk, labeled as a top risk in the field of application. And that's why the human oversight is key on that. Then we have the Data Act, the Data Governance Act, which is about it's fostering data sharing and clarifying roles in terms of data holders, users, and owners. There is also the ITS directive that stresses the interoperability of traffic data and systems. And then, as we are talking, and the audience and the police member are cities, is always good to frame this kind of application within the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan framework, because these kind of solutions should be rooted and linked and used in order to meet long-term sustainable mobility policy goals. And so within this framework, which is new, recent in evolution, we tried to help cities translate this regulation into really an operational practice. Governance, we believe that can be seen, it's a multi-level one. There are different levels, 3 levels we identify, where with different authorities and different roles and different powers. We start from the European level, which is about regulations, the ones that I've just mentioned, standards and fundings. Then we have an intermediate level, which is the national one. National authorities are responsible, take care of certifications, interoperability, data infrastructures at the more local level. But then cities have a key role. Cities work on implementation and are responsible for ethics, oversights, and operation. Because indeed, the traffic, when we think and we talk about traffic management, is about operating traffic in cities or city levels, or this is a large part of the problem. And it's about coordinating local stakeholders, and there are many stakeholders. There are authorities, city authorities, there are transport operators, there are public transport operators, there are road authorities, road managers, and many more. And so it's about coordinating these stakeholders, and it's at city level, at this level, it's rooted insurance of the ethical development of artificial intelligence. What are the building blocks of a key governance in this field? It's about data governance, which ask for interoperability, data quality, privacy protection. It's about institutional coordination, so clearly defining roles among different public authorities and other public or private operators or stakeholders. It's about ethical oversight. This is about really transparency and explainability. Artificial intelligence cannot be a kind of black box, providing some inputs, some outputs, some directions, without and letting people, users, operators understand why these kind of decisions are making. That's why the human oversight is needed. And then there is a pillar, a building block related to procurement and compliance. Of course, to make it happen, it's about procuring either services or equipment and solutions and technologies. And ethics elements, transparency should be included in the requirements for these procurement contracts. And then last but not least is about monitoring and evaluation, like every policy implementation. And in order to set some KPIs and to constantly monitor to what extent policy goals are met by means of AI performance and applications. Only if we consider all these elements, all these pillars together, we can really think and be confident in that we can create a trustworthy AI ecosystem. This is the tool that was part of this broader city guidebook. It's a really a simple operational tool, free, available for free. It's on the ACUMEN website. I trust my colleagues has posted this link in the chat box.
In the chat, so you can directly access it.
Yeah. Maybe you can have a look at it later after this webinar. But the idea was to provide a tool, first of all, to assess. The target are cities, city authorities, the decision makers and practitioners and civil servants working in cities responsible to implement traffic management solutions. So the idea is to help them to assess the readiness of AI, first of all. So then to identify what are the suitable AI applications, because when we think and we consider AI application and traffic management, there are at least, for instance, 3 different levels. It's strategic, it's tactical, and it's operational, and according to the level you want to address, there are different solutions, different applications that where you can use AI. And all in all, guide a safe implementation. So this is really our effort was really to translate something really complex in terms of regulations, in terms of governance principle, but make it easy, a structured decision process. Of course, this is not solving all the problems, but it gives you an idea about what are the factors, what are the elements, what are the challenges, what are the constraints, and what can be the solution and the guidance to deal with this. The tool is organized in what we call the 4 gates. So meaning that we start with an entry gate. This is about understanding the challenges, constraints, dimensions of the city, because any solution should be proportionate to the city needs. And when it's clear, you can move to the second gate, capability gate, so to understand your readiness about data infrastructure, governance structure, and legal compliance. And you can be either being already capable, you can be already ready, so you can move to the third gate, or you will receive some recommendations, some suggestions on how to bridge the gap, how to solve the unreadiness. When you are ready, you can move to the third gate solution, where you are guided according to your needs, constraints, which are in terms of capacity, in terms of staffing, in terms of funding, etc. You can be guided in what's your best AI solution you can implement. And then finally, you can move to the execution gate where you are guided in a way to move from a small pilot implementation to scaling up solutions. Within this process, there are some labels, I mean, city maturity levels that you can be attributed. I mean, there are emerging cities which are at the early stage that should build knowledge, data, and governance capacity. There are developing cities that are ready to test, but they are not testing yet. And then there are the advanced ones that are already implementing something, maybe at the pilot level, and that can consider to scale up these in the whole city or in other settings. This is, sorry, maybe I'm taking more time than planned, but just the last couple of the slides and messages. I mean, it's about policy recommendations. So I cherry picked some of the recommendations that I believe are relevant for the ones that joined the webinar today. It's about establishing proper governance frameworks in terms of roles, procedures to manage risks. Is about to have constantly an oversight proportionate with the risk levels of these applications. It's about strengthening data governance, open data, interoperability data that are, I mean, something that is needed upfront. And then integrate AI governance into a simple process. This is a tool to achieve some goals that are the ones related to sustainability or climate neutrality, for instance, and then invest in capacity building, because the public authorities needs also some AI literacy to start with, to start to understand and use these kind of solutions. So my very last message is that AI in traffic management is very powerful, but this is not replacing human decision making. This is supporting, providing support in taking better, faster decisions. But human decision making is always key in this aspect. But I think I can stop here for the time being. I don't know if there are any immediate questions on that, or we can wait for the final Q&A.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Simone. If there is any question just directed on this ACUMEN presentation or the tool, feel free to speak up or to ask it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna invite already Lakshya to share his screen to go for the SYNCHROMODE presentation because it's now already, yeah, we're already a bit delayed. So yes, if I don't see immediate question now, so we'll you can keep it for the Q&A session. Good, and don't hesitate, yeah, to go and check the tool directly on the ACUMEN websites and share it with other cities that would be interested. Go for it, Lakshya.
Okay.
It's yours.
You can see the screen, right?
Yes, and we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joining us from different parts of the world. It was a wonderful presentation from Simeone, and also thanks to Melina for representing the project in the beginning of the presentations. I will present some insights from SYNCHROMODE, representing Ruprecht Consult, who are leading the work package 2 in the project, which is user needs, system requirements definition, and governance models. So to begin with, let me change my slides. As it was already mentioned, we are part of the multimodal traffic management cluster, and let's define what traffic management truly is from the multimodal perspective. It is more related to the coordinated control and optimization of different modes within a given network or a given area. And this comes from the roadmap, which was published in 2024. This is available for public, and it was also developed including SYNCHROMODE and ACUMEN, which are part of this webinar series. And going to different modes of transport, it is focusing more to enhance the traffic management focuses more to enhance the resiliency, safety, sustainability, and efficiency of the transportation system for including both passengers but also the freight in consideration in its scope. Once we have this down, we look into the multi-actor cooperation. We know it's not implemented by a single authority. We have different authorities, we have different operators, we have different service providers and users, and each actor, they have their own interests, their own priorities, and their own operational capacities, which was also mentioned in the Mentimeter. Sometimes that's one of the key barriers as well. So that's why we need the governance framework to align these interests, especially to make decision-making in a more cooperative manner, which is done jointly. Because without this coordination, the multimodal optimization cannot be achieved. There is differences in how data exchange takes place. It's limited, and that also creates a barrier in traffic management decisions, which can often remain fragmented. And to go forward with it, what we do in SYNCHROMODE, coming more into the different frameworks, is it is more local. It is the governance structures are very context specific to each case study in the project. They are guided by common frameworks like Socrates 2.0 cooperation model, RHYME architecture, SUMP, such as sustainable urban mobility planning, stakeholder engagement, and Oslo system model. To give you a brief overview, just to talk on these four cooperation models, four frameworks, the methodology and experience from Socrates is of particular relevance to SYNCHROMODE because it has a focus on multimodal traffic management solutions and alignment with different cooperation models proposed in the services of the toolbox in the project. And it was also in the SYNCHROMODE, we have partners from MapTM who was part of the project, so Socrates, and they are able to give us the insights and also the adaptation in SYNCHROMODE. Regarding the RHYME architecture, it is also a framework of it's a German framework for the architecture of intelligent mobility services, and it provides a guide for design planning, also functional and technical economical implementation of intelligent mobility solutions. And we go to some Oslo system model, and it gives a more multimodal, on a more holistic analysis of the multimodal traffic system for each case study to establish how different governance schemes and multi-actor cooperation practices takes place. And we will go further into each of them in depth in the next slide. But at the same time, we also see that since RHYME architecture and SUMP stakeholder engagement have its background from Ruprecht Consult being involved in the development, so they represent the SUMP cycle, which you see in the overall structure of the RHYME as well. Going further in depth, now we just give you a brief overview of how these frameworks were used in the project. So in Socrates, it defines how actors cooperate in real-time traffic management in general. And this was used as a backbone framework to see what are the roles, how different actors are structured, and how do they interact between each other, and that enables coordinated traffic management decisions. Going to RHYME framework, as I already mentioned, contribution is more towards the planning framework for different intelligent data-based mobility solutions in the project. It has served as a guidance during the initial phases of the project through workshops as well to develop the vision, but also to identify how different stakeholder preferences were and what are their requirements. Going towards the Oslo model, as I said, it provides a more holistic system perspective to understand the mobility ecosystem. So it stands for open social, technological, and economical aspects, and that's why it looks into all these conditions to see how different how the mobility ecosystem works as a whole. And in the project of SYNCHROMODE, it has been used to guide different stakeholder discussions and workshops, but also ensure that different dimensions are considered not only technological, but also organizational and decision making in a cooperative design. And going to SUMP stakeholder engagement, it defines how stakeholders are engaged in planning, but also decision making, and in the project, workshops, surveys. But participatory decisions, design sessions are used to develop cooperatively how the governance models with different stakeholders are taken into consideration. So if I go back in the slide, you can see different aspects of it's a bit small, but once you go to the SUMP cycle, you see there are different phases of preparation and analysis, strategy development, measure planning, and implementation and monitoring. And you see which stakeholders are to be consulted, informed, collaborated, and empowered. Now, in the next slides, I will focus more on the Socrates, considering its central backbone framework for the project. And to begin with, we just go with the different roles which the framework defines. And the four are, which you see in the pink, the network monitor, network manager, assessor, and strategy table. And monitor, they collect public and private data. They combine that data to see and to give an overview of what the present status of the network is, and it makes sure this is made available to different parties or different actors following predetermined business rules. Network manager, they identify the problems once they see the overall framework, the overall condition, and then they send these requests based on the overall overview. They give the request to service providers or traffic management centers to act upon different problems if they've identified any. And following that, the service providers and traffic management centers, they execute the actions, which gets reflected upon the users. And with these users can be public transport users or passengers or road users, depending on different case studies and use cases. Once these actions are implemented, the assessor, they evaluate the impact of the actions. How did it perform? Was it good? Was it bad? Or what was the overall efficiency of these actions? And on a less frequency, strategy table comes into picture, which is the main strategic decision-making body. These are often public transport authorities, the bodies, in place, which take the responsibility of developing long-term mobility strategies to look into what are some missing indicators which should be taken into consideration, where added data should be collected, and how do you manage this toolbox of services. So this is a brief overview of how the framework looks into different actors and how you see how the flow of information should take place, and how strategy table as a whole is one of the key actors, especially for the long term or more of a strategic case in the SYNCHROMODE. And to give you a brief look of what services the toolbox in the project looks into, it has three services. One is the data exchange, or the overall data processing, the visualization, which is the cooperative dashboard for real-time monitoring, and then the transport network and management support tool, which looks into enhancing the passenger flight flows, but also looks into response plans for planned and unplanned events. And with the Socrates 2.0 cooperation models, these aspects of exchanging data, shared view, and coordinated approach is made sure it goes hand in hand with the SYNCHROMODE toolbox. And we will give you some examples of how the previous flow and how the different roles are, how the toolbox integrates and helps with the overall Socrates flow of actors and actions. And before we go into that, as it was already presented by Melina on the 3 case studies for SYNCHROMODE, which is Netherlands, Madrid, and Thessaloniki, they are just some governance challenges which we are still developing based on the ongoing workshops in the 3 case studies. And these are subject to change once we have published the final deliverable of the project next month. So focusing on Netherlands, there are challenges considering there are large-scale disruptions on roadworks, tourism, and events, including quick and off. And in Madrid, it's more on key challenges of aligning different integration of public transport and flight operators. And in Thessaloniki, is again, it's more real-time traffic management and resilience planning and decision-making across different actors. We see there are regulatory challenges considering aligning long-term planning with real-time operations. So it's more strategic versus operational capacities, and then looking into how we define rules for combining passenger and freight, because that's a very not a unique solution which we see in Madrid, where we have to look into legal and operational challenges. And in Thessaloniki, it's more also focusing on ensuring that data governance takes place because there are not multiple traffic management centers, and also that needs to have more stakeholder compliance and security. And also at the same time, we make sure that the cooperation takes place not only within the traffic management center, but also between the traffic management centers. So going quickly into the Madrid case study insights, what you see on the right is the flowchart is more of a strategic flowchart where we see how public authorities and planners are generating data, and it goes to the toolbox, and then from the toolbox you see the simulation tool of DRT services, and also long-term public transport demand forecast is taken into consideration, and that is given, and then the public transport planner gets the access to the indicators and also the demand forecasts. The key challenges which the case study looks into is being the low frequency of existing bus lines and utilizing the underutilized resources of off-peak hours, and also looking into the parallel growth in parcel delivery and demand. Key actors in Madrid are public transport passengers, coordinating authorities, public transport operators, regional transport authorities, ATM, logistic companies, and parcel receivers as key. And through these governance, we try to make sure that these frequencies or the flow is more transparent and open. And as we go towards the operational aspect, which is more on a short-term basis, here we look into the optimal coordination of passengers and packages. And here you see how almost on a daily basis, the frequency of requests towards data regarding packages to be delivered, DRT passenger requests, or public transport demand is fed into the toolbox, and that leads towards the short-term public transport demand forecasting, passenger tracking, parcel tracking, and indicator monitoring. Overall, the indicator monitoring also goes to the public transport authority, whereas passengers and parcel tracking are with respect to different operators and including the DRT, logistics, and the public transport buses. And then it tells you how the passengers should be transported or how the parcels should be transported based on a decision of Socrates framework. Now going more in depth of how much the frequency is between these actors, which you come back to the Socrates framework, and also how different modules of the toolbox is integrated. You give an example of Netherlands case study where it looks into high tourism flows, seasonal events like Keukenhof, and also large-scale disruptions of roadworks. Here, the challenges is more to align long-term planning decisions with short-term traffic management as some of the key challenges, and the key actors include the province of South Holland, public transport operators, rail operators, traffic management centers, and mobility service providers. Now, zoomed in, this is how you see different data providers. They collect data regarding floating car data, ticket sales, and every second it goes to the network monitor, which looks on a minute basis. And this gets fed into the predictive modules, and it helps the network monitor see the overall dashboard of what is the prediction of number of visitors, what is the prediction of traffic demand, what is the prediction of disruptions based on the data being fed. And based on that is fed also on a minute basis to the SYNCHROMODE decision support modules, which the network manager has the access, and they look how the selection of intervention should take place or social routing should take place. And they give this request to the service providers and traffic management centers, which is the South Holland province, and also the service providers, which is Arriva, B-Mobile, BAPTM, and other, which are part of the project. And after the actions, the assessor in this role, it is the MAPTM, it assesses and sees how the impact takes into consideration after the actions, and after, on a monthly basis, it gives those reports to the strategy table, which is again the public body, which is the province of South Holland and interested stakeholders. And they then update the strategy or the long-term vision every 3 months. This is like an overview based on the SYNCHROMODE subtleties and workshops, and we see to align to have more transparency of who is where and how these actions should take place, involving the users but also the data providers. And finally, I won't go too much into details of each and every aspect of the Thessaloniki use cases because there are so many, but it focuses more on the resilient traffic management, event management, and also the real-time data exchange between actors. One key aspect which I found very interesting, which we found through workshops, which expedite use case, is to establish a coordinating body for data exchange and standards and protocols, because that is equally very important to make sure the cooperation culture is implemented through initiatives and workshops, and also make sure the underutilized data is leveraged to enhance the planning quality and situational awareness. Here, the key actors are again the bus operators, taxiway, the infrastructure and authorities, traffic management centers, and service providers, along with mobility platforms and urban delivery companies. And through workshops, we found which data is more important. You see there is a difference between the public transport modes of bus and rail services. You see for planned and unplanned events, those are the highest priority, and followed by public bus-related data. For rail data and shared vehicle data, that was of a less priority, which we found from the workshops. And for the emergency services, access to parking-related data was of a top priority to suggest how perceptions take place. I wanted to keep this slide more on the data was because the data is crucial in overall process of the governance, because that's the key foundational aspect of how you interpret data and how it can be then operationalized based on analysis. That leads to the final key learnings. I hope I'm not over time, Sybil, but just 1 minute.
We have less time for the Q&A. So please, if you have some questions, just put them in the chat, and we hear the final key learnings of SYNCHROMODE.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm just reaching out to the key learnings. These are not in any priority of order. This is not in any hierarchy, but just what we found from the workshop learnings is data sharing is a foundational requirement. And that is also what we found is from the surveys and also from workshops, that is critical for different actors. And at the same time, continuous stakeholder engagement is key, because different methods have helped to identify conflicts between actors, to see what defines roles and responsibilities. And it is also important to make sure that the strategic alignment is there as it's a key part of cooperation of success and governance, and especially for real-time decision making with automated systems. And as for example, from Thessaloniki, how applying role-based cooperation is also important, where we see that responsibilities are distributed according to competencies and rather than organizational hierarchy. And having a shared situational awareness through tools like data platforms, cooperative dashboards, or performance indicators, they support coordination between actors, which are service providers, operators, authorities. But as you see in Madrid case, how different operators can request the access to these platforms in the flowchart, and also to introduce coordination entities or agents for decision platforms, which can be joint strategy committee or traffic management coordination systems. And then on the last slide, to look on the ongoing task, we are finalizing the workshops in SYNCHROMODE project, looking into the 3 case studies, and the final deliverable with all the results and governance inferences and impacts and lessons learned will be finalized in the coming weeks, and based on the final workshops and insights to improve the multi-actor cooperation. So this on the right side is just one of the ways we have integrated different frameworks to organize these workshops and also provide some insights. And with this, I would say thank you and Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Alexia. So now it's already time to leave. Some attendees must leave. So look, for Helmut, yes, we can definitely share the slide with you, and also all the different resources, the tools that were created, so you have access to them. And if you want to know more exactly about the pilots, then please feel free to attend the final event. Yes, I see also there were two questions from Joanna. I'm not sure we have time to tackle them now, but we are going to take all of those questions to the final events, because there will be another presentation on governance with some insight, and for SYNCHROMODE all the final insights. So it's indeed some question that we'll take into account. If it's okay for you, or if you want to just explain it in 1 minute, Simone and Lakshya, if you see the question in the chat. But otherwise we'll do in 1 minute, and then we'll take everything for the final event. You can change slides, maybe, Lakshya.
Yes.
And just the question from Joanna for ACUMEN was, sorry,
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
It was about the governance framework that I was mentioning. I'm sure to be able to answer in a very fast, very quickly, because we should elaborate a bit. By the way, I think that particularly if we look at the city level, I mean the third level of this multi-level governance framework. I think that there are some elements we should consider in this governance framework. One is about appointing clear roles, and that can be the AI officer, the data steward, the ethic board. So clear roles, responsibilities, and formalize them so that also accountability is clear. Then it's about defining and adapting to different, because AI and traffic management have different components. We should adapt some procedures to the risk implied by each of them. So the higher the risk, the stricter oversight is needed. Then it's about creating an AI system registry where all the tools are listed, considered, their purpose, and how decisions are made, because that again can be quite different. And then we should establish audit and reporting mechanisms, meaning that AI decisions should be traceable and can be reviewed. And overall, I mean, these elements help to guaranteeing the human in the loop decision making and an ethic review process. But I mean, sorry, I'd like to keep it short, but we really would deserve
it's some
more
really
time.
it's some really big questions. So maybe we'll tackle them during the final event. But thanks for already providing some insights. I think we will now end the webinar for the sake of time. But thanks a lot to our speakers to present all those elements, all those inputs. And yes, feel free to join the final event for some more discussion, and also to really interact directly with the pilot leaders who were able to test and to give inputs of those different governance framework. So thanks a lot to everyone, and have a good end of the day.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.